But I also want to really just go back to the question of culture. And we're talking here organizational culture, if we're talking workplace. And organizational culture, when it's defined, it's about behaviors, it's about values, it's about practices, all right? And the things that we do at work is what would define your culture. And I truly believe that if we want to see the shifts we're talking about, it needs to start with how are we represented at boards, because that's where the policies, the decision-making, the practices starts, to the executive level, to the leadership, as first part. The more our companies, our government reflects the demographics of the countries, it's the first step. But it's also then start talking about policies. But our policies are just policies until you start practicing them in organizations. And practicing then talks to what you are talking about, Sandra, until it's visible and can be seen. And it can form part of the practices, it's the system in the organization. We will continue to talk about it. So organizations have that. Those that don't have hotlines, encourage that. But there should actually be more than just that. Are our HR department empowered to, in fact, be in a position to challenge management if management is not willing to do something about it?
I think there is also, organizational culture. There's usually the culture that we speak of and the culture that we don't acknowledge.
Yeah.
Usually, if things are happening, somebody knows, whether it's reported or not, because especially in a white-collar environment, the issues tend to be more personal and more covert, because it's not going to be out there, but somebody knows.
Let me start by saying that Islamic IBTC in Nigeria is in the banking industry, which is heavily, I repeat, heavily regulated by the Central Bank of Nigeria. So one of the things that Central Bank of Nigeria has come to the party with is diversity and inclusion. So to the point that we have a policy. We started off with harassment policy. But when we realized the importance of diversity, we realized the importance of the fear that has been created over time in the environment, we sort of called out sexual harassment from harassment policy. So we have a whistleblowing policy, and it's not being managed internally, it's managed by KPMG, and we have investigative bodies to the point that if there is any whistleblower, once you blow the whistle, and it gets to that investigative body, they will investigate, and you will take it to the disciplinary committee. If found guilty, then another story begins.
And I would like to say that as long as we don't have gender representation on the bodies that make the decisions, we can legislate all we want, and the outcome will always be that the woman overreacted or it was a mistake made by the male perpetrator. Because in my experience is the person that the report owes on the other end of the hotline is most likely male, the disciplinary committee is more likely male, and it even gets more complicated when it's a senior executive that's implicated in that. So I reckon that if we go back to legislation and look at ways of ensuring that it's a requirement that you have a certain mix on the senior leadership team, or when you convene a disciplinary committee that's going to be deliberating on such a case, that you have the right mix such that all the cultural considerations that we're talking about do not mix up the true issues.
We've got the responsibility of educating our men, number one, in terms of what's right or wrong, based on what is in the policy, and helping them understand the consequences of firstly, articulating what wrong looks like. Because if we talk specifically sexual harassment, it could go from being verbal to what you are texting, to what is attached on your email, to who you touch. So articulate all that in your policy, train them, so that next time when they do it, you are able to then take the necessary steps.
We have to lead and make sure that we speak against those issues. There's no point in me saying, as chair of BP, I've got the best principles. My CEO is a woman. I've got more than 44% women at leadership level. But if in the community I'm not displaying the same activism, then it comes to naught. So let's be who we are wherever we are. Thank you very much.
Thank you.